Hey, it's Jason. It's been 6 months with the new iPhone 16, Apple's latest non-pro level flagship phone, and it's been an interesting experience so far. Outside of the iPhone 14, this is probably up there as one of the most iterative updates Apple has put out, as the phone is strikingly familiar with last year's iPhone 15. That said, the main differentiator Apple was aggressively tying to this phone is the fact that it would have access to Apple Intelligence, making it, at the time, the only non-pro iPhone with such a privilege. But the phone was released without any of the Apple Intelligence features toggled on, which was really strange. It was like that for a month, and then they slowly made their way onto the iPhone 16 over various software updates rather quietly, and now it's been about 6 months. So I thought it'd be a good time to do a bit more of a long-term type of review on this guy in case you've been on the fence, to really help you determine if the iPhone 16 is the right phone for you. But real quick, in case you didn't know, I am doing a giveaway of a brand new Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. If you guys want in on that, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and that you're subscribed to the JSL Newsletter. It's totally free. Link to subscribe will be in the description down below. Okay, let's talk about the iPhone 16's design and form factor 6 months later. There's not a lot to cover here, to be completely frank. You probably know by now that despite this being the newest non-pro iPhone, it still retains the general design blueprint the iPhone has been using for about 5 years now, so it has a very familiar look and feel. That said, as I've been using this phone, I got my hands on the iPhone 16e, which uses the body of an iPhone 14, and despite looking familiar at a distance, I kind of forgot that the 16 has a slightly modified design. The frame on the 16 compared to the 16e, even though they're both aluminum, is noticeably more robust and well integrated into the phone. It has a slight curve around the edge to make it more comfortable to hold in the hand compared to the completely squared off sharp edges of the 16e, and even though it may not look like it's a big difference, you do notice it in the hand. It's a similar story when you compare the displays on these phones as well. I forgot that Apple did make the bezel on the 16 slimmer to give users a more immersive viewing experience. You also get extra buttons on the 16, one of them being the action button above the volume rocker and the new camera control button on the bottom of the frame here. Now we'll talk about the functionality of those buttons later in the review, but from a design standpoint, they're super minor additions that don't in any way change or necessarily upgrade the form factor of the iPhone 16. Honestly, the thing that I think Apple did the best on this phone 6 months later is the colors, particularly the teal one that I have here. It's been a joy to look at. The deeper and more saturated approach to the colors has aged well over time, especially with the frosted matte finish on the back and the precisely executed color match frame. At the end of the day, I'm not upset that the form factor of the iPhone 16 is basically the same as many iPhones that came before it, but I think I speak for everyone when I say that it's time for Apple to overhaul this design. I know others are guilty of this too, but it's been hard to get excited about an iPhone when it's looked the same for so freaking long. Hey, Editor Jason here. Real quick, before we get into the next part of the iPhone 16 long-term review, I want to give a big shout out to Bellroy, today's video sponsor. Bellroy has been my go-to for all of my tech travel needs, as it has a wide range of super well-made accessories and bags. For example, check out their new 3-card phone case for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's made out of a premium leather that feels great in the hand and I think will patina beautifully over time. The inside of the case is lined with a super soft microfiber lining so it won't scratch up your device. And it not only provides comprehensive protection, it also comes with an integrated slim wallet that can hold up to 3 cards and has this clever magnetic trapdoor to keep them out of sight. This helps me stay minimal and keeps unnecessary things out of my pocket, and the case can act as a kickstand to prop up my phone as an added bonus. Now when I'm on the move, the phone fits perfectly into the Bellroy Venture Sling like the 6-liter version that I have here. They do have a larger 9-liter version, but this one to me is the perfect size as it has a front zip pocket where I keep all of my smaller items when I'm on the go, like my SD cards, battery packs, and even my keys on this convenient key clip. The main compartment can hold larger items like my phone or my Fuji camera and even a water bottle. It's made from a water-resistant woven fabric that is tough and durable, and I love that there are zippers on both sides for easy access. Now when I'm going on a longer trip, my go-to is the Bellroy Transit Work Pack. This is great because it has a dedicated built-in sleeve that can fit up to a 16-inch laptop, which is critical for me when I'm editing on the move. It has a full zip clamshell opening that allows for a ton of storage space with a variety of useful pockets within for quick and easy organized storage. There's also a large zip pocket in the front front that's perfect for something like an iPad, another must-have when I'm traveling. It has a luggage pass-through on the back and a minimal aesthetic that gives off a modern and clean look. It comes in 3 different sizes and multiple different colors and is extremely well put together. Considering that I spent a ludicrous amount of money on tech, it's great that Bellroy has tough and stylish accessories to ensure my devices are safe and protected when I travel. Plus, Bellroy is giving you guys 10% off any Bellroy order for a limited time only. Use the link and the code in the description below to jump on that deal. Get the high-end travel accessories that you and your tech deserve. Check out Bellroy today. So let's talk about the performance and features of the iPhone 16 6 months later. This phone is equipped with Apple's A18 mobile processor, and generally speaking, the performance over the half year has been solid as to be expected. It is hard to notice performance improvements on iPhones when it comes to day-to-day actions, as the iOS experience has been smooth and stutter-free for a long time. The same goes with more spec-intensive activities like mobile gaming. It's been able to handle this without really breaking a sweat for quite some time, even as the games get more advanced. Battery life is about the same as what the iPhone 15 was pumping out. It's more than enough to get through a full day of moderate use if you start the day on a full charge, but not enough to get you past the next morning if you don't get a re-up. Generally speaking, it's not to say that the performance is not better than before, you just won't really notice many of those improvements even if they're there. Now, there are some new features that came with this phone, starting with the addition of the action button. 6 months later, this has been a great to have, especially as Apple is adding functionality to it, and if you know how to geek out with Apple shortcuts, there's actually a lot that you can do with this new button. The new camera control, on the other hand, I'm just gonna say it, it's a totally unnecessary addition. It's sad to say because I'd have to guess that a lot of time and energy went into engineering this. It's impressive how they baked in the Force Touch capability into such a small surface area, but the fact of the matter is it's not easy or comfortable to use, and because most people are so used to accessing the camera app using the traditional path, this new addition is rarely, if ever, actually used. And I think I speak for everyone here, it would have been infinitely better to have spent the money that they put into developing this new button and just give the iPhone 16 Apple promotion. I choose 120Hz refresh rate over this camera button any day of the week, twice on Sunday. Now, when it comes to camera performance 6 months later, I do have to say it too is quite similar to what the iPhone has been putting out for a couple years now, but that's not a bad thing because Apple has been kind of crushing it in this department. The still images coming out of the iPhone 16 are sharp and natural looking with its colors, and though it's not as stylized as its top competitors, the photos are consistently good and high quality. 6 months later, the lossless 2x zoom has actually come in quite handy. It really does feel like you have a triple camera setup as the zoomed in photos don't come off grainy or over pixelated. The video quality is also top notch as to be expected. The 4K video that you can get from this phone is fantastic as the footage is sharp and well saturated and not overly processed. As I was testing out the 16E, I realized how much I used cinematic mode, a feature that phone doesn't have and something that I've grown to appreciate on the iPhone 16. On the flip side of that coin, I do wish that it had access to 4K 120 frames per second slow-mo like the 16 Pro. That addition would have been chef's kiss. But overall, 6 months later, the camera quality on the iPhone 16 has been pretty familiar, much like most areas of this phone, but no doubt still fantastic when compared to the larger competition. Now, as stated in the intro of this review, the real selling point Apple was pushing onto would-be buyers is the iPhone 16's access to Apple Intelligence. 6 months later, we finally have at least some of the available AI features toggled on, and I think underwhelming is the nicest way to describe how it's been over that time. For me, the only feature that I've used somewhat regularly since these features have been released on the iPhone 16 are the writing tools. It is nice having the ability to quickly have AI proofread or adjust something that I'm writing, especially if it's an email for work, which is a bit more formal. I've also occasionally used the cleanup feature on the Photos app. It performs okay, but I think Samsung and Google do it better if I'm being honest. The visual intelligence feature, I tried it a few times, but I'm not a fan. I way prefer Google Circle to search. My kid loves to mess around with the image playground, but I almost never use it. But I think the most disappointing part about Apple Intelligence has been Siri. It's still such a poor and lackluster AI assistant. Even with the ChatGPT integration, it pales in comparison to Gemini as its responses are so generic and high level, you don't get a sense that it can actually understand what you're really asking for most of the time. And I think the real gut punch here is that very recently, Apple announced that the promised upgrades to Siri that were heavily advertised as the reason to buy this phone will be delayed again. Remember, this phone didn't ship with any of the Apple Intelligence features turned on, and now 6 months later, we're still left holding our breath for the quote-unquote groundbreaking AI things this phone is supposedly able to do. At this point, we're just gonna have to hope and pray that Apple gets their act together with Apple Intelligence and that it does get better over time, because for the here and now, it's definitely an overpromise, underdeliver scenario. And that brings me to my overall thoughts on the iPhone 16. 6 months later, do I think the phone is worth it? Now, my answer before when this phone first came out was, it depends mainly on what phone you're coming from. But now I'm just gonna go on a limb and say a flat out no, it's not worth it. And the main reason why, the iPhone 16e now exists. The 16e gives users like 95% of what the iPhone 16 has, and the 5% that's left out isn't anything groundbreaking in my opinion. And considering that the 16e is $200 cheaper, it makes a lot of sense to go with that phone if you're a value shopper. But I know some people don't like the 16e, so let me know what you guys think. Would you opt for the more budget device, or would you stick with the regular 16? Curious to get your thoughts, let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments down below. And in case you guys missed the full review of the iPhone 16, definitely check it out here to make sure that you're as informed as possible.